Hello and welcome back to another episode of FM Predicts. And in today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at a certain English centre midfielder, Declan Rice. It's been in the news that he is pretty close to sealing a move to Arsenal for a reported fee of £100 million. So I thought, why not try and find out how FM thinks it would work for Declan Rice if he was to move to Arsenal. So I'm in the game here. We've set him up to be transferred to Arsenal on the 1st of July 2023. We're going to go through each individual season, see how long his career lasts, see how long he stays at Arsenal, see how successful he is, and how much of that success is at Arsenal is down to him or not, as the case may be. So if you like the sound of all that, please hit the like button to let me know that you're enjoying these series as we move on, and I'll keep them coming. Here we go. It's the end of the 23-24 season. Declan Rice is there with his Arsenal badge next to his name. How has he done in his first season with Arsenal? Well, he's played 35 times for them in all competitions, 7 goals, 6 assists, 4 Player of the Match awards, and an average rating of 7.13. A pretty decent start, I would suggest, on that form. Obviously, as we are using the real results mod, which is in the description below if you want to use it yourself, we don't have the stats for the season that's just happened in real life to compare against. So we'll just compare against all of his seasons at Arsenal. Well, in his first season with Arsenal, Declan Rice he's played quite a lot in the Champions League, which suggests Arsenal got quite far in that competition. He played 11 times, no goals but 3 assists in that, an average rating of 7.22. In the Premier League, he played all but 3 games, scoring 6 assists, an average rating of 7.13. In the FA Cup, 5 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, an average rating of 7.62. In the Carabao Cup, 5 games, 1 goal, and an average rating of 7.24. And then in the European Championship qualifying for England, he played 8 times, scoring 1 goal and getting an average rating of 7.1. So that is pretty good going from Declan in his first season. Across all competitions then for Arsenal and England, he ended up playing 64 games, scoring 11 goals, 11 assists, and an average rating of 7.19. Very good start for him. Now, did he win any competitions? Well, we can see here in 2024, Arsenal were runners-up in pretty much everything, finishing runners-up in the Carabao Cup. We'll kick off with that one. So they lost 2-0 to Man City in the final. They were runners-up in the FA Cup, again losing to Manchester City. Who scored the goal for Arsenal, though? Was it Declan Rice? It wasn't. It was Saliba that scored the goal for Arsenal. Rice did play, though. And then in the Champions League final, it was Real Madrid that beat Arsenal 2-1. Again, Rice not scoring. Pepe was the goal scorer, but Rice having a pretty good performance in the Champions League final against Real Madrid. And then in the Premier League, Arsenal finishing 4th, getting Champions League football for the next season. So a pretty good season overall from a personal perspective for Declan Rice, and a pretty decent season for Arsenal as well, making 3 major finals, losing them all, but still making them and getting Champions League football for next season. So let's see how he gets on in his second season. So we're at the end of the second season, but there was one thing that I just wanted to check. So obviously the Euros happened in 2024, but we came back before the Euros had taken place at the end of Declan's first season with Arsenal. So we can take a look at how England did in the Euros right now. They had Germany, Sweden and Turkey in the group stage, lost 2-1 to Germany. Declan Rice played that one, no goals. They beat Sweden 4-0. Declan Rice playing again, but no goals from him on this occasion either. And then a 0-0 draw with Turkey in the final group game where Declan played quite well, 7.8. And then in the second round of the Euros, England were knocked out France 3-1. France won. Declan Rice playing again but not doing too great. So as we did in the first season, we'll take a look at his form competition by competition. So starting things off with the Champions League, 16 games played in the Champions League, 4 goals, 4 assists, average rating of 7.22. Premier League, he played 2 more times than he did last season, only missing out on 1 Premier League game, scoring 5 with 5 assists and an average rating of 7.27. In the FA Cup, 6 games, 1 goal, 1 assist and an average rating of 7.4. In the Carabao Cup, it looks like either Declan got injured, which is unlikely given the number of games that he played in the Premier League, or Arsenal got knocked out quite early on, as he only played once and got an average rating of 6.5. And then for England in the World Cup European qualifying section, he's played twice, scoring 1 goal, average rating of 7.4. And in the Nations League, which is called the European International League for some reason, in Division A, he played 6 times, no goals, no assists, but an average rating of 7.05. Meaning overall he played 68 times, 11 goals, 10 assists, and an average rating of 7.25. So again, pretty decent season. If we compare that to last season, here he got, if we look at the bottom down here, 7.26 average rating overall this year, 7.2 last year. So it's an improvement. But domestically, it doesn't look like Arsenal had as successful a season this time round, only finishing as runners-up in the FA Cup for the second year in a row, losing to Everton in the final this time after extra time. And again, no goal for Declan Rice in the final of the FA Cup. Was Zambo Anguissa who got the goal, his centre midfield partner. So I was just intrigued to see how Arsenal did in the other competitions, and they made it all the way to the semi-final of the Champions League, getting beat by Real Madrid again. Real Madrid knocking them out of the Champions League for the second time in a row. Obviously, last time it was in the final, this time in the semi-final. They did get one goal, Arsenal, in the semi-final, but it was Eddie Nketiah, not Declan Rice. And then in the Carabao Cup, a very unfortunate draw, being drawn against Man City in the third round, losing 3-2 to them. But in the Premier League, a bit of improvement, up to second, finishing just 2 points behind Manchester City. So we could perhaps see Declan and Arsenal pushing for a league title next season. So again, as with the last season, we'll start with the back end of Declan's second season with Arsenal, and we'll start with the international fixtures. So England making it into the Nations League, well, the Nations League last four, losing to Portugal 3-1 in the semi-final. Declan Rice playing his part there in a 7.7 match rating, and then losing 3-1 in the third place playoff as well. Not great for England. But taking a look at his stats on a competition by competition basis, again, we've got the Champions League, 12 games for him in that, 1 goal, 2 assists, average rating of 7.34. In the Premier League, he played a bit less, significantly less game time than the previous season, 6 games less in fact, 2 goals, 1 assist, 7.12 average rating, which suggests he might have picked up a bit of an injury at some point. We'll take a look at that in a second. In the FA Cup, playing 5 times, no goals, 1 assist, average rating of 6.84. In the Carabao Cup, 4 starts, 1 appearance off the bench, no goals, but 1 assist and an average rating of 7.12. And for England in the World Cup European qualifying section, he played 8 times, scoring once, 2 assists, and an average rating of 7.61. Which means overall, for his third season with Arsenal, and including England, he played 60 times, once off the bench, 4 goals, 7 assists, and an average rating of 7.21. That means it's his lowest average rating for a season at club level. Anyway, 7.13 average, if you look at the bottom down here, for Arsenal this season. So let's take a look if he did pick up an injury this year. He's picked up a few, actually. He's out with a twisted ankle for 4 weeks in January, and then he had a tight hamstring for a few days. He got pulled ankle ligaments in April, out for 2 weeks with that, and then he's been out for 11 days so far with pulled knee ligaments since a match against Leeds. But in terms of competitions, well, Arsenal, we'll start with 2025, Club World Championship, runners-up, again, losing to Liverpool in the final. Salah and Jota with Liverpool's 2 goals, Eddie Nketiah with 1 goal for Arsenal. I'm assuming Declan played in this. Or was he injured at this point? No, he played. He played in the Club World Cup. That just didn't appear on his competition things. That must have been counted as last season. But finally, Arsenal have gone on to actually win a competition in this experiment video. Arsenal beating West Ham 3-0 in the Carabao Cup final to pick up Declan Rice's first piece of silverware as an Arsenal player. It was Martinelli, Saka and Jesus with the goals. Rice, though, playing and getting a 7.4 rating in the final. And they made it a domestic cup double as well, beating Liverpool on penalties in the FA Cup final. Martinelli getting the only goal of the game for Arsenal. Declan Rice not taking a penalty there, but he was on the field. A bit of a poor performance in an FA Cup final, though, for Declan Rice with a 6.5. So Arsenal finishing 4th in the Premier League. A bit of a drop down from the second place that they had the previous season. 10 points adrift of Chelsea, who ended up winning the league, and 4 points clear of Spurs in 5th. So just before we get on to Declan's 4th season with Arsenal, we've got the World Cup, which happened at the back end of his 3rd season, and there's some, I don't know what's going on here. Honestly, don't have a clue. Uzbekistan made their way to a World Cup, and England beat them 4-0. Harry Kane with a hat-trick, Saka with a goal, and then England beat Colombia 2-1 in the other group game. Obviously, this is before the World Cup, before FIFA confirmed that the World Cup would still remain with 4 teams per group, so I'm assuming this was a 3-team group stage. And England, beating Colombia by 2-1 and Declan Rice playing against Colombia. For some reason, don't have the info for the game against Uzbekistan. Now there's a crazy team even further down, possibly on a similar level to Uzbekistan, but we'll get to that in a second. England being drawn against Morocco in the second round of the World Cup. Declan Rice playing that one as well, an 8 rating for him in that one. Sterling getting a brace, Kane with a goal, and then please someone explain to me what's happened here. How have the Democratic Republic of Congo managed to make it firstly to a World Cup and secondly to the third round of the World Cup and thirdly to beat England in a World Cup? England knocked out by Democratic Republic of Congo by 2-1. Declan Rice played, got a 6.6 rating. If they've gone on to win the World Cup, okay, they haven't. France won it. Where did they? They made it all the way to the third place playoff. That's insane. Why is that? I'm completely lost to that. I don't understand. The world ranking's 30th. So I've just had to check there. In real life, they are currently ranked 70th in the world. And somehow in this game, they've jumped up to 30th. I guess their performance at the World Cup's going to have helped that. But why were they so good at the World Cup in the first place? I'm just scrolling down to see where Uzbekistan are. They're 49th. They're 74th in real life. Insanity. And we're only, 4 years into the future? Okay, well, away from the insanity of the World Cup and international football, Declan played 12 times in the Champions League for Arsenal this past season. 2 goals, no assists, average rating of 7.34. In the Premier League, he's played the least amount of games that he's done in a season so far. We're going to have to look again to see if he picked up an injury. 28 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, average rating of 7.22. Carabao Cup, were Arsenal knocked out early again, or is this because of his injury? 1 game played, no goals or assists, average rating of 7.3. Community Shield, 1 game played, obviously, because it's only 1 game. No goals, 1 assist, 7.6 average rating. And then in the Nations League, played 4 times, no goals or assists, average rating of 7.4. And in European Championship qualifying for England, 2 games, no goals or assists, average rating of 7. So overall, across all competitions for Arsenal and England in his 4th season with Arsenal, Declan Rice played 48 times, 4 goals, 3 assists, average rating of 7.26. Now, let's take a look at his injuries. So he continued to have a few injuries and 1 major injury as well. So he pulled his abdominal muscle in August 2026, was out for 2 weeks. Twisted ankle in October 2026, out for 3 weeks. And then in December 2026, he sprained his knee ligaments and was out for 6 weeks with that. So these injuries are starting to pile up now. He's damaging his knee ligaments a little bit, and his ankle is taking some pain as well. And in terms of competition wins, just the Community Shield for Arsenal in this past season, beating Chelsea 3-1 in the final of that. Martinelli and 2 Saka goals. Rice with an assist as well. I probably went through that when I ran through his stats. In the Champions League, Arsenal were knocked out by Liverpool at the quarter-final stage. 1-1 draw in the first leg, 1-0 defeat in the second leg. Knocked out in the third round of the FA Cup to Burnley, which is a very disappointing result for them. And then knocked out in the 4th round of the Carabao Cup to Manchester City. And in the Premier League, Arsenal finishing 4th yet again for the 2nd season in a row, level on points with 5th place Newcastle and some way back from eventual champions Manchester City. So despite playing less games overall in this past season, he has jumped his average rating back up to around the mark that it was in his 2nd season with Arsenal. So back up to levels you'd expect. He just needs to hope that those injuries don't continue and possibly curtail his career. So before we head into the 5th season with Declan Rice at Arsenal, we have a couple of games from the Nations League to look at from the end of the previous season. So England made it again to the final 4 of the Nations League, but lost in the semi-final 1-0 to Poland. And Declan Rice did play this game, getting a yellow card, 7.3 rating. But then they actually won the 3rd place playoff, which I think is the first time they've done that in this experiment video. And Declan Rice played again, 7.1 rating. He didn't get a goal, but they still finished 3rd in the Nations League. So in the Champions League, he played 12 times, 4 goals, 2 assists, an average rating of 7.47. He played most of the Premier League games for the first time in a good few seasons. 36 games played, 3 goals, 2 assists, and an average rating of 7.25. 5 games in the FA Cup, 1 assist, no goals, but a 7.42 average rating. 4 starts in the Carabao Cup, 1 appearance off the bench, no goals or assists, but a 7.05 average rating. And then for England in the European Championship qualifying, he played 5 times, 1 assist, no goals, and a 7.02 average rating. So in all competitions, in his 5th season, Declan Rice played 62 times, 1 off the bench, 7 goals, 6 assists, and an average rating of 7.27. So he's back up to where you would have expected him to be. Obviously, missed a few games last season, but still managed to have a good average rating. This season, he has improved on that even more so. And just out of interest, looking to see if he did have any injuries, he had a couple of little niggles, bruised ankle, tight hamstring out for a few days, and then a pulled thigh out for 11 days, but nothing major like the sprained knee ligaments from the season before. And in terms of success with Arsenal, they won the Carabao Cup again, beating Chelsea 2-0 in the final of that competition. But Declan Rice didn't play in the final. And he wasn't injured at that time, so I'm not sure why he didn't play, but I guess he still gets the medal. In the other competitions, Arsenal made it to the FA Cup semi-final, but were beaten at the semi-final stage by Manchester United. They made it to the quarter-finals of the Champions League again, but losing it to Bayern 3-0 in the first leg, then winning the second leg with Declan Rice scoring at the Emirates, but it wasn't enough. A 3-1 defeat knocking them out of that competition. And then in the Premier League, it was 4th place yet again. This has become their standard position once again. 3 points clear of 5th place Manchester United and well adrift of, again, champions Manchester City. So as always, we'll look at the international games that were played the season at the end of the season before that we just looked at. So England were in the Nations League and they faced Poland in the semi-final, lost 1-0 to them, but then had France in the final, and not in the final, in the 3rd place playoff, beat them by a goal to 0. So one thing I forgot to point out is that he was appointed as Arsenal captain in the 2025 season and then appointed as England captain in July of 2026. So his experience is serving him well for getting these opportunities to captain both club and country. So in this, his 6th season, he played 12 times in the Champions League for Arsenal, scoring once and getting 3 assists with an average rating of 7.36. Missed a few games in the Premier League, but not too many. Played 34 times, 4 goals, 3 assists, average rating of 7.04. In the FA Cup, 5 starts, 1 goal, no assists, average rating of 7.54. And in the Carabao Cup, 1 start, 1 appearance off the bench, no goals or assists, and a pretty poor average rating of 6.95. Then for England, 1 game in the World Cup European qualifying section with an assist in that game and a 7.7 average rating in that game as well. Not an average rating, just a rating. And in the Nations League, 3 games played, 1 goal scored and an average rating of 7. So overall in the 6th season, he played 56 starts, 1 appearance off the bench, 7 goals, 7 assists, and an average rating of 7.15. Now, if we look at how that compares to a previous season, the only season that is worse for him at a club level, with the average rating down the bottom right here, is a 7.13 in the 25-26 season. This season just gone, he did a 7.15, so need a bit better from Declan next year. And then in terms of success with Arsenal, there wasn't any this season. No trophies won. So how have they done in competitions then? They reached the quarterfinal of the Champions League again, lost 3-0 to Barcelona in the first leg. Declan Rice playing, doing all right, 7.2 rating in that game. And then drew 1-1 at home. Declan Rice again playing 7.2 rating, but not enough in the end and knocked out of that competition just after they'd been knocked out of the quarterfinal of the FA Cup to Manchester United after Garnacho got the only goal of that game after extra time. Declan Rice playing again with a 7.1 rating. And then they were also knocked out of the Carabao Cup at the 4th round stage, losing a penalty shootout where Declan Rice did actually manage to score his penalty, but the rest of his teammates let him down, or at least 2 of them did. And in the Premier League, you probably could have guessed by now, but Arsenal finished 4th in the table on 71 points, 6 points clear of Man United in 5th, and 9 points adrift of Man City. So not as big a margin as we've seen, but Manchester City are just running away with the league titles. Only Chelsea have won one since this experiment video started. So in season 7 with Arsenal, he played 10 times in the Champions League, 1 assist, average rating of 7.29. He played 36 starts and 1 sub appearance, only missing 1 game in the Premier League, as he scored 2 goals, got 4 assists and an average rating of 7.25. 4 games played in the FA Cup, 2 assists, an average rating of 7.55. 1 game played in Carabao Cup, no goals or assists, but a rating of 7.8 in that game. And then for England, in the World Cup European qualifying section, he played 8 times, getting 3 assists and an average rating of 7.29. So compared to his previous season, that's a major improvement. A 7.27 average rating for the club over the entire season, which is a big improvement on the 7.17 of the season before. So how did Arsenal do? Well, Arsenal actually won the Premier League for the first time. So we'll start with that. Champions of England, Arsenal, only the second team other than Manchester City to win it in this experiment video, finishing 2 points clear of Spurs in second and Manchester City of 3 points adrift of Arsenal in third. So a pretty poor showing for Man City this season, but Declan Rice has won his first Premier League title. In the other competitions though, Arsenal knocked out by Declan's former club West Ham after extra time in the FA Cup quarter-final. A 7.3 rating for Declan in that game, not too bad. In the round of 16 of the Champions League, they were knocked out to Atletico Madrid, losing 2-0 away in the first leg and winning 2-1 in the second leg, but not enough. Declan Rice getting a 7.3 in that second leg. And then in the Carabao Cup, they were knocked out to Chelsea after penalties, after drawing 1-1 in normal time. Declan Rice playing that game, a 7.8, a pretty good rating, picking up a yellow card as well, scoring his penalty as well, but William Saliba just... he screwed Arsenal a little bit there, missing that penalty. And in the summer of that season, it was the World Cup once again. And England had a group that included Algeria and Jamaica, and they beat both of them, beating Algeria by 3-1 and Jamaica by 3-0. In the second round, they were drawn against China. They beat them 3-0 as well. Declan Rice actually on the score sheet in that one, opening the scoring for England. And then in the third round, they beat Ivory Coast by 2-0. But it was the quarter-final where they got knocked out to Holland as they lost 2-0. So in his 8th season with Arsenal, he played 9 times in the Champions League, no goals or assists, an average rating of 7.18. In the Premier League, he played 33 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, and an average rating of 7.24. The FA Cup was a bit of a disappointment as he started once, made an appearance from the bench as well. No goals or assists, and a pretty poor rating of 6.25. In the Carabao Cup, he played once, no goals or assists, but a rating of 7.3. Played the Community Shield, got a rating of 7.6, but no goals or assists. For England, in the Nations League, he played 4 times, again, no goals or assists, but an average rating of 7.1. And in European Championship qualifying for England, played twice, but a pretty poor rating of 6.55. So overall, in his 8th season for club and country, he made 51 starts, 1 sub-appearance, 1 goal, 1 assist, and an average rating of 7.16, which from a league basis is a pretty good season for him. But from an overall club basis, it's a 7.19, which is pretty close to that second worst 7.17 from a couple of seasons ago, and it's a bit further away from his worst season for club, which was 25-26. In terms of how Arsenal did this season, they won the Community Shield. That's it. They beat Liverpool 2-1 in the Community Shield. I think we already know that he didn't get a goal or an assist in this one. So Arsenal made it to the quarterfinals again. It seems like they get to the quarterfinals so often in this video, but they were knocked out to Liverpool. They won 2-1 in the first leg away from home at Anfield, but lost 2-0 in the second leg. But it looks like, Declan Rice was playing, but it looks like he was playing in defence for both games. Pretty decent rating in the first leg, but not too great in the second. They were knocked out of the 4th round of the FA Cup by Coventry 3-2. Declan Rice was sent off as well, a 5.8 rating for him in the FA Cup 4th round. Coventry win League 1. Arsenal knocked out by League 1 Coventry. That is not great. And then in the Carabao Cup, they were knocked out to a more understandable team of Liverpool as they lost 3-1. Declan Rice playing that, again, a 7.3 rating. And one thing I forgot to look at for this season was his injuries, because I feel like he had a big one. He did. He had a couple of little ones as well. No, that was the season before. So yeah, October 2030, he sprained knee ligaments in a match against Dortmund, kept him out for 5 weeks. So explains the drop off in the number of Premier League games that he played. But speaking of the Premier League, Arsenal could not retain their Premier League title, missing out on the title by just 3 points from Newcastle, who pick up their first league title of this video. Manchester City finishing second this season, 2 points behind Newcastle, but Arsenal's still in the title race, so got to be pleased with that. So now into his 9th season with Arsenal, and he played 8 times, which started 8 games in the Champions League, 1 sub-appearance, no goals but 2 assists, 7.39 average rating, no goals or assists in any of the other competitions either. I'm starting to think he might actually be playing as a defender most of the time now. It's 34 appearances in the Premier League, average rating of 7.12, 4 starts and 1 sub-appearance in the Carabao Cup with an average rating of 7.07, and 8 games for England in the European Championship qualifying with an average rating, a poor average rating of 6.89. And that is by far and away Oh no, not by far and away. Joint worst average rating for Declan Rice in at least the league portion of a season for Arsenal. Level with his very poor 25-26 season. But overall for the club, it's an average rating of 7.17, which is still his second worst, because obviously we have the 7.13 of the 25-26 season. Now, in terms of competitions for Arsenal, well, we'll start with this one. They won the Carabao Cup on penalties after drawing 1-1 with Manchester United in the final. Declan Rice playing in defensive midfield, it looks like, in this game. So scoring a penalty in the shootout, once again, it seems to be something that he's very capable of doing, and another trophy in the bag for Arsenal. And then, you probably saw it on the previous screen, they won the league again, 1 point clear from the previous season's champions Newcastle, and Manchester City are now on a bit of a drought from the title, but a second Premier League title for Declan Rice and Arsenal, and I'm pretty sure if he does decide to move to Arsenal, he'd be very happy with that. Now, in terms of the other competitions for Arsenal this season, they made it to the round of 16 of the Champions League, so not as far as they normally do. They faced Milan, they drew 2-2 in the first leg and lost 1-0 at home in the second leg. In the FA Cup, they were knocked out to their rivals Tottenham by a 0-0, and Declan Rice didn't play that game. And at the end of that season, it was the Euros, and England went into it facing Norway, Holland and Poland in the group stage. They beat Norway by 3-1, getting revenge on being knocked out of the World Cup by Norway in the previous World Cup. Declan Rice getting on the score sheet as well with an 8.1 rating against Norway, and then beat Holland by 2-1 and drew their final group game against Poland to qualify for the knockout rounds, where they faced Belgium in the second round, beating them 3-0. They faced Italy in the quarterfinals and beat them on penalties, getting revenge for Euro 2020, where they lost in the final, obviously. And Declan Rice again scoring in a penalty shootout. He just comes up clutch in penalty shootouts. They beat Spain after extra time in the semi-final, and then faced Sweden in the Euros final. Declan Rice not in the side though. Had he picked up a suspension, I've noticed a couple of yellow cards, or at least one yellow card. I think Declan Rice might have got himself suspended for the Euros final, which is very disappointing because England went on to win it 3-2. So I guess we can give him the medal for that. A European Championships victory for Declan Rice. Now for Declan's 10th season with Arsenal. He's due a testimonial. He's been there 10 years now. Champions League, played 10 times, no goals or assists, with an average rating of 7.13. 35 starts and 2 sub-appearances in the Premier League with 5 assists and an average rating of 7.13. 3 starts and 3 sub-appearances in the FA Cup, no goals or assists, and a pretty poor average rating of 6.97. 5 games in the Carabao Cup, 1 goal and a 7.22 average rating. Played the Community Shield, didn't score or get an assist, but he got a 7.2 rating. And then for England in World Cup European qualifying section, played once, terrible rating of 6.4. In the Nations League, played 5 times, average rating of 7.1, no goals or assists. And then in the European South American Super Cup, he played 1 game. I'm assuming it's just 1 game anyway. Is that the Euros against the winner of the South American thingamabob? It must be. 1 assist anyway in that game, a 7.7 average rating. I'll check that now. Yeah, England against Brazil. Okay. It's whoever wins the Copa America, right? Against the Euros winner. Must be. Which means overall, in his 10th season for club and country, he played 61 starts, 5 sub-appearances, only 1 goal, but 6 assists, and an average rating of 7.12. And if we compare that, his league form, it's slightly better than the season before. But overall, for Arsenal, that 7.13, is that level? That's joint level as his worst rated season, joint with 25-26 season. But he's still regularly playing for them at 34 years old, I think he is now. So he's doing pretty good. And also, just looking at his landmarks, he broke the England record for most appearances, gaining his 139th cap in the match against Turkey. So he's now England's leading appearance maker. And as well as winning the Euros, his Arsenal team finished runners-up in the Community Shield, which isn't really an achievement. Losing narrowly, though, 1-0 to Manchester City. They did actually win a trophy though. They beat West Ham in the final of the FA Cups. Declan Rice beating his former club once again. And he did play that game. He didn't score. He had a pretty poor rating, to be honest. And in the other competitions for Arsenal this season, they made it to the round of 16 of the Champions League once again, losing to Barcelona 2-1 in the first leg and 1-0 in the second leg. in the Carabao Cup. They made it to the semi-final, losing 3-1 to Newcastle at home in the first leg, but then winning 3-2 at St James's Park in the second leg. Declan Rice getting himself on the score sheet as well, but it wasn't enough, obviously. That 1 goal difference was the difference in the end that sent Newcastle to the final and Arsenal out of the competition. And then in the Premier League, my goodness, that is close. They finished level on points with eventual champions Chelsea, losing only on goal difference by 2 goals. That is one hell of a close title race. You've got Newcastle down in 4th, who are only 2 points off top of the table. Liverpool in 3rd, 1 point off. That would be a very exciting final day of the season. And in the summer, after we looked at his stats for the last season, England played in the Nations League once again. They beat Portugal in the semi-final by 2-1. Declan Rice playing that game, getting a yellow card, but a rating of 7.1, and then lost 1-0 to Italy in the final, with Declan Rice playing again with a 7.4 rating. So in his 11th season with Arsenal, he played 12 times in the Champions League, an average rating of 7, 0 goals or assists. In the Premier League, made 32 starts, 4 sub-appearances, 5 assists, and an average rating of 7.18. In the FA Cup, just 1 appearance off the bench, no goals or assists, and he didn't play enough time to get a rating in that one game. In the Carabao Cup, 2 sub-appearances, no goals or assists, but an average rating of 7.4. He played the Community Shield, got a rating of 6.9, which isn't great. And then for England, played 4 games in the World Cup European qualifying section, not scoring or assisting, but getting a 7.03 average rating, which means overall, in his 11th season for club and country, he made 49 starts, 7 sub-appearances, 5 assists, and an average rating of 7.12. I think that is possibly the lowest number of games that he played in a season for a while. Did he pick up an injury this year? No, he didn't. So it's just because of his age then. So it's an improvement, though, in terms of his league form for Arsenal, at 7.18 compared to the past 2 seasons. But his overall club form is level with the worst of the previous season, the 32-33 season, and the 25-26 season, where it was a 7.13. So how have Arsenal done this year? Well, they won the Community Shield. They beat Chelsea in the final of that, or in the only game of that, on penalties, after Martinelli gave them the lead, Raspadori equalising for Chelsea. And then did Rice even play this game? He did, but he didn't take a penalty. In the other competitions, Arsenal made it to the quarterfinals again for the first time in a while. They faced Liverpool in the quarterfinals, drew 1-1 at home. Declan Rice getting 7.2 in that first leg, but then lost 3-0 at Anfield in the second leg of the quarterfinal. A 6.6 rating for Declan Rice, not great. In the FA Cup, they made it to the 5th round, but were knocked out to Middlesbrough, although it looks like they played a bit of a rotated squad. I mean, where are Middlesbrough these days? They're in the Championship, so it's a bit better than that Coventry City defeat from a few seasons back. And then in the Carabao Cup, they were knocked out to Newcastle by 2-1, but Declan Rice just making a late sub-appearance in that one. And then in the Premier League, well, that's a bit of a fall from grace. Arsenal finishing 6th in the Premier League, not even getting Champions League football for next season. But where were they? They were second. They were second the season before. They've fallen down to 6th. 65 points, 19 points off Chelsea, who win the league again for the 2nd year in a row. That's terrible. And at the end of that season, it was a World Cup year once again for England. They faced South Africa in their first group game, beat them by 4-2. Then they faced Chile and beat them by 2-1. Declan Rice with a very poor 6.3 rating in this one. That meant they made it through to the second round, where they faced Serbia, and it was just a 1 goal in it, but they did win 1-0. Declan Rice getting a 7.1 rating. Then somehow Jamaica made it to the 3rd round of the World Cup, and England battered them by 7-2. And Declan Rice again with a 7.1 rating, looking like he's playing centre-back, judging by the list of names here, but I don't know if that's just a randomly assorted list, not based on position or anything. And then in the quarter-final, England lost 2-1 to Spain. Declan Rice playing again with a very poor 6.3 rating. So in his 12th season with Arsenal, it's the first time he's had to play Europa League football, to be fair to him. 9 starts in that competition this season, 1 sub-appearance, no goals or assists, but an average rating of 7. In the Premier League, he's falling off a bit. It's 19 starts, 3 sub-appearances, 2 assists, average rating of 6.96. 1 start in the FA Cup, 7.1 rating in that game, and 1 sub-appearance in the Carabao Cup with a 7 rating in that game. Which means overall, for club, there's no country fixtures here. I think he might have retired from the national team. We'll have a look in a sec. But for club, He's played 29 starts, 5 sub-appearances, got 2 assists, and an average rating of 6.98. I think Declan could be heading towards the end of his career. Now, was he in the most recent England squad? Yes, Pep Guardiola is actually England manager currently. Is Declan Rice there? No, Declan Rice is not there. So Declan Rice is no longer playing for England, is what I can judge from that. There it is, retired from international football on the 16th of July 2034, so after the World Cup, after the last World Cup. So this, of course, his worst season as since signing for Arsenal. 6.96 rating in the league. In terms of his overall club average rating, it's still a 6.98, so that's a lot worse than any of his previous seasons. But to be fair, it's to be expected. He's 36 years old. And also, he had a pretty major injury, a hip injury, kept him out for 2 months in this season. He also pulled his thigh in this season out for 10 days. So time is catching up with Declan, and I feel he's not going to last much longer. But anyway, looking at how Arsenal did in this season, they won the Europa League. So the first time competing in it with Declan there, and he managed to win. And not only that, they beat their arch rivals, their nemesis, Spurs, in the final. Rice playing that final, not playing well, 6.7 rating, but still managing to win it. And in the other competitions, Arsenal were knocked out at the 5th round stage by Leicester. Declan Rice getting a 7.1 rating in that game, where Leicester now, they're still in the Premier League. They got relegated because that's the real life relegation, and then they got immediately promoted, and they've been in the Premier League since then. In the Carabao Cup, they were knocked out by Manchester United, a 3-0 defeat in that, Declan Rice not playing at all in that game. And then in the Premier League, Champions League football is returning to Arsenal for next season. They finished third, 67 points for this season, 1 point off second place City, but Chelsea running away with it, and they've become somewhat of a dominant side in the past 3 seasons, winning back-to-back Premier League titles, finishing 8 points clear of City in second. And in Declan Rice's 13th season with Arsenal, which is going to turn out to be his final season, he retires after this point of the game. So his final season with Arsenal, he played 5 starts in the Champions League, 2 sub-appearances, no goals or assists, an average rating of 7.14. He played the Super Cup and got a rating of 7.4, which is pretty good. In the Premier League, he played a few more games than last season, I think. 21 starts, 9 sub-appearances, no goals or assists, and a pretty poor average rating of 6.84. 4 starts in the FA Cup, 1 assist, an average rating of 7.12. 1 start and 2 sub-appearances in the Carabao Cup for an average rating of 6.9, no goals or assists. So overall, in what turns out to be his final season with Arsenal, he played 32 starts, 13 sub-appearances and 1 assist with an average rating of 6.93, which is again going to be down on all of his previous seasons with the club. And in terms of competitions that he won this season, Arsenal were runners-up in the Super Cup, losing 2-1 to Real Madrid in a game that, of course, he did play, and he played quite well, a 7.4 rating in that one. And they were also runners-up in the FA Cup, losing to Crystal Palace in the final by 2-1. Declan Rice playing that one as well, 7.2 rating in that game. And in the other competitions, their return to the Champions League didn't go to plan, as they lost 2-0 in the first leg of the round of 16 to Atletico Madrid. Declan Rice playing that one for a 6.7 rating, and then they could only manage a 1-0 win at the Emirates, with Declan Rice playing that one as well, a 7.3 rating, but that knocked them out of the Champions League. In the Carabao Cup, they faced Manchester United in the semi-final, lost 2-1 in the first leg. Declan Rice getting a 7 rating in that one, and then in the second leg they lost 1-0 with no appearance. No, Declan Rice did play in that one. It looks like he got injured though. 6.8 rating for him in that. And then in the Premier League, Arsenal finishing 4th this time around, only 4 points off Liverpool. There's been a few close title races. This isn't as close as the last close one, but still pretty close. Liverpool finishing level on points with Chelsea at second, but much better goal difference, both 1 point clear of Man United in third. So overall in his career, Declan Rice has 13 competition wins to his name. So he's won the Premier League twice in 2030 and 2032 with Arsenal, won the European South American Super Cup for England in 2033, he won the Community Shield 3 times for Arsenal, Carabao Cup 3 times as well, FA Cup he's won twice, Europa League he's won once, the most recent competition that they won, and the European Championships, or the Euros, he won for England in 2032. He's also had some personal achievements. He's won England Player of the Year and Champions League Midfielder of the Season. So Declan Rice, not that you're watching, but if you make the move to Arsenal, you're going to have a pretty alright time. So that is it for this experiment video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. Let me know any other experiment videos that you'd like me to do, basing most of them on transfer rumours and transfer gossip and managerial movements and all that kind of thing, but always interested to try something different. So if you've got any ideas, leave them in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel to get all my content when it comes out. Hit the notification bell to stay notified, and I'll see you next time.